I said to a friend the other day that if I actually stop and ruminate about what the hostages are enduring or the unimaginable barbarity that was perpetrated on 710, I'm not sure I would be able to function. But at the same time, if I don't, how can I look at myself in the mirror and honestly say that I'm part of my people's pain? I watched an interview with Dietza Ol. She's the mother of the hostage Avinatan Ol. And she explained that every morning until 11 o'clock, she allows herself to feel, to be overcome and feel and immerse herself in the pain that she's experiencing. And then at 11 o'clock, she closes the gate and she protects her soul and she doesn't let the mechablim, the terrorist thoughts, to enter her mind. She learned this from a Hasidic work, the Tanya. But I think there's something profound in what she's saying. And I was thinking and ruminating on my own kind of constant dichotomous sentiment between, on the one hand, wanting to think all the time about the pain of all of these people, unimaginable pain of so many different people in so many different at so many different levels, and at the same time knowing that if I just stop and focus on that, I won't be able to function. None of us will be able to function. So it's this constant tension between remembering and forgetting that is something that shapes our individual lives at the moment, but also our collective identity as a people. I think back to my grandfather, who was a Holocaust survivor, and he chose silence and almost probably a repression of his memories over this idea of having to speak out the experience, because that was the only way he was able to move forward. He did leave us, he died young, and he left us with unanswered questions, untold stories. But in his silence, and perhaps maybe even the repression of his memories, he was able to function and to build. And that's what he did. As a nation, also, we embody this duality. We move forward with unbelievable, almost extraordinary resilience. And yet at the same time, we are, in order to do that, we have to sometimes repress the past. So we carve out, as a nation, days where we're meant to feel the pain and we're meant to engage with the painful and torturous memories of our people suffering. But the rest of the year, we are mandated to carry on. And I think in many ways, this week's Parsha offers us some profound insights into this tension and teaches us that to heal, we have to make space for both. We have to make space for pain and wrestling with our past, but we ultimately have to know how to integrate it and also move forward and transform it ultimately in the future into a blessing. So I want to look at Yaakov for a second. We see in this week that he struggles with an ish with a stranger before facing his past, which is in the guise of his brother Esav. And the encounter can be read on two levels. It can be read, obviously, at a literal level, that he had this kind of encounter with somebody, with an angel. But I believe that its language, its content, its quality asks us, invites us to a more metaphorical, almost psychoanalytical reading of the text. Yaakov's about to face suppressed elements of his past that he's tried very hard to forget. And the text tells us that he sends messages to his brother Esav, and he says to him, כה אמר עבדך יעקב, עם לבן גרתי ואיכר עד עתה. He says to his brother, I lived with Lavan and I was delayed until now. This idea of Echal being delayed is very strange. What does he mean he was delayed? He was obviously delayed in coming back. But there's also an element of the fact that it could be read, sorry, as a idea of acher, of otherness within himself. It was the otherness within himself, this trauma of his past, that paralyzed him, that prevented him from moving forward. Interestingly enough, there's a very fascinating parallel between Abraham and Yaakov. Yaakov lives with Lavan. far away from his past and his family and even his destiny, and therefore it makes it easier for him to keep his repressed memories of deceit and pain the moment that he becomes someone else buried within. God calls him to come back. Abraham is the opposite. Abraham's almost told to forget everything, to leave everything behind in order to become anew. So Abraham has to forget in order to become anew, and Yaakov is commanded to return and to remember in order to truly become anew. So at this climatic moment in the narrative, just before he's about to confront Esav, Yaakov wrestles with this ish, with this man, with this stranger. And the stranger, as Yaakov, asks his name. It's the same, the stranger asks Yaakov name, and it's the same question that his father asks him years earlier. And at the time, that's the moment he deceives his father. He replies Esav. But now he seeks to return to his true self, and he responds, Yaakov is my name. This is his yearning to reclaim the simplicity, the truthfulness of the tent-dwelling shepherd that he once was. But the Ish, the person he's struggling with, delivers a different message. He says to him, your name will no longer be Yaakov, but Yisrael. Because you have struggled, im Elohim, with God and with man, v'tuchal, and you will prevail, or you have prevailed. The message is clear to Yaakov. You cannot return to who you were before. Trauma, events can't be erased. But instead, what you need to do is to integrate these fractured elements of your identity. You need to embrace the complexity and the multi-dimensional parts of your identity. Immediately following this, Yaakov asks the man, the person he's struggling with, what his name is. He says, V'yomer higida na shimcha, tell me your name. Rabbi Shmuel Klitzner points out a fabulous phonetic connection between Yaakov's request, V'yomer higida na, Gid ha-nasher, Gid ha-nashimcha, and Gid nasher, the dislocated part of his body that happens during the struggle. Rashi links the dislocation of the nasher to the meaning to forget, when Yosef calls his son Menashe. So the Gid HaNasher, in a way, symbolizes the tension that we've been speaking about between remembering and forgetting. In forgetting, there's a form of dislocation from the past. But Yaakov's challenge is lahagidat hanasher, to speak that which has been forgotten. As Freud insightfully teaches us, that in order to overcome trauma of the past, we have to speak it. We have to repeat the repressed material. Yaakov's struggle with the Ish represents this process of having to speak the past, coming face to face with an identity I've wanted to repress, with a part of myself I wanted to forget, with a trauma in my life that I didn't want to face. And so before Yaakov takes leave of the stranger, he demands a blessing. He says, I will not let you go until you bless me. And I think Yaakov's refusal to release the past until he's extracted from it some form of blessing, it's not just about closure, but it's actually about transformation, in the guise of Viktor Frankl, to find meaning in our suffering. Yaakov transitions from clinging to the hill, from Yaakov, literally clinging, Ekev, from clinging to the hill, holding on to the past and remaining a victim of his circumstances, to becoming Yisrael, one who looks yashal, ahead, forward, embracing agency and responsibility. But still, at the end, Yaakov limps, and his injury remains a lasting memory of his struggle. The dislocation never fully heals, much like the enduring scars of trauma that we've witnessed around us now in this time. Yaakov learns to walk with a limp that we see so many of our veteran soldiers, our soldiers today, walking with one foot, with injuries, with so many different things that have happened to them, but it embodies a resilience and this unwavering continuity and promise of life, of moving forward. V'yavo Yaakov shalem il Shechem. That's how it ends. In a remarkable way, the text describes him as coming shalem, whole or complete, despite his physical and emotional wounds. The completeness does not erase his struggles, but there's a sense of him being able to integrate them into his identity. Today, we also oscillate between the imperative to remember and the need to forget. As I said in the past, survivors of the Holocaust, like my grandfather, repressed their experiences in order to build a life that was a blessing. Survivors of unimaginable trauma today have often chosen silence as a means of survival. And similarly, the families of the hostages have to navigate this delicate balance between confronting pain and protecting their ability to function. Let's not forget, we are still in the trauma. It's too early even to speak about integration or meaning. I would even say it's sacrosanct to imagine moving forward at this point. We're stuck in the trauma with Yaakov. We're unable and unwilling to look forwards whilst we still have 100 of our beloved brothers and sisters in the hands of our barbaric enemies. But God's willing, once they are returned very soon, shalem, whole, we will be able and look towards our forefather Abraham to guide us in how to limp forward, uncovering fragments of blessing within a very, very fractured reality, and maybe one day finding wholeness even within our brokenness. Wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom and Besorot Tovot. We should only hear good news.